If your student is in one of my high school classes, there are certain things that overlap between physical science, biology, and chemistry. Number one, they have to have the correct addition. The physical science students will need the Apologia, Exploring Creation through Physical Science. It is the second edition. They will also need the Test and Solutions, so that there's actually 2 books involved for physical science. Also in physical science, they will need a calculator, just an inexpensive calculator that they can use, and they are required to use their calculator for all mathematical calculations in my class. It is not a math class, this is a science class, but they do have to show me all of their work. Even if they can do it in their head, I don't care. It's not right unless I see the work. So they have to write the work on their paper and then use the calculator to get the answer, because it is a science class, and therefore I need to know that they're doing it correctly. So please make sure that they do that. So they need the textbooks, they need a calculator, and they also need to bring a notebook and writing implements into class with them. I would ask that you would print out a copy of their syllabus for them and put it into their notebook so that they have it. Each class session, it will say prep for class 1, and that is the homework that they're expected to do before they come to the first class period. So then when it says prep for class 2, they will do that before the second class period. That's how the syllabus works. Every student is supposed to watch the 3 creation interpretation classes on YouTube before the first class. That way we're laying the creation foundation that all of the students need, but I'm not taking time away from the class. And that's why we did it that way. Physical science students also are going to need printed out several documents that they are supposed to read. There's extra reading in physical science, and so I have sent all of the parents a letter. They can go to catiefrates.info /attachments /. I've sent you that email, and you can print out those documents there. Some copy places you can actually tell them the website, and they'll go on there and print it out for you. Others, you're going to have to put it on a disc or something, or a stick, and take it in and get it copied. But please get that copied and put it in your students' notebook so that they have that, because like the first reading they're going to need by the 4th class, so they're going to need it after the 3rd week. So please don't wait on that. Go ahead and have that done for them. The students, when they do vocabulary words, I do not want them to use word for word out of the book for the vocabulary words, at least not for memorizing it, and therefore it's probably better not to do it for their homework either. They should come up with, if it's possible, they should come up with something in their own words to give the definition for the vocabulary words, if that's at all possible. We will go over them in class, and I will give shortened versions for them in class. When they do a lab write-up, and the students have an example of a lab write-up in their syllabus. There are a few parts that I require in a lab write-up. Number one, it should have a title, and then it should have what number lab it is in the book. And the book gives it a title and it gives it a number, so that should be at the top of the lab write-up. Then I require 4 Roman numerals. The first Roman numeral is the purpose of the lab, and I've explained to your student how they can find that in the textbook, but that's why they're doing the lab. They have to give some logical reason what they're trying to accomplish with that lab. And the text will tell them. It's usually, in physical science, it'll be in the introduction of the lab. Keep it short, though. We're not trying to write reports here. It's a science class. Roman numeral 2 will be the procedure, and I want that short. I would prefer to have that in just bulleted points or numbered points rather than paragraph form, because I think it's easier to follow a lab procedure if it's just bulleted or numbered points. Paragraph form is very difficult to follow when you're doing a lab. So I would prefer that. And to keep it short, once again, don't get crazy with this. Roman numeral 3 will be their observations and sometimes calculations, but in physical science, more often than not, observations. So they would put whatever they saw in lab, what they smelled, what measurements they made. That would be in the observation section. Number 4 is where most people have the most difficult time, and that is their conclusion. And I've told the students what I want from them there is the fact that they learned and connect it with the observations. And so I will be happy to go over that with them in class after we do a lab, what the conclusion should probably sound like or look like each time we do a lab. I'll try to go over it with them. Usually in the physical science book, it's found right after the lab in the text. So if they will read, they can usually find it right there. So I just want you to be aware of that. And so those are the 4 points. When the student reads their textbook, they are to read all the on your own questions, answer the on your own questions. That's their homework. The answers to the on your own questions are actually in the back of each chapter. That's not a problem. If you're new to homeschooling, you might think, oh my goodness, but it's really not a problem. Those of you that have been homeschooling a while know this, because the idea is practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And so it's important that the students can check each answer as they're learning it to make sure that they're learning it correctly, otherwise they're learning it incorrectly. And so it's very important that they're able to check their work. And then the study guide, they will go ahead and do at the end of, like most modules, it'll take us 2 weeks to cover. And so at the end of the second, when they're coming into the second class, their homework will say complete the study guide. They're to do the best they can on that. We will go over it in class, so if they're having trouble on something, they need to ask. It's not a problem. We will go over it in class. The tests are taken from the study guides, and so if the information, if they know the information that is in the on your owns, that they've covered in the labs, and that's covered in the study guides, then they will be properly ready for the test. And so I just want you to understand that that's what they should study. Once they've taken the test, and if you're doing the class as is suggested, they would take the test closed book. So it is a real test. If your student is a special learner or there are other extenuating circumstances and you would like for them to take those tests open book, that is fine. I am here to teach your child physical science. I am not here to tell you how to homeschool. I'm here to help you. And so that's up to you. But if you're doing it the normal way, want to honors physical science credit, they should take the test closed book, and then we will grade the test at the beginning of the next class period. That means even if you decide to grade their test, please send their test with them to class, because that, after we pray, that's the first thing we're going to do. And I, on a regular basis, have students say, well, my mom graded it, so I didn't bring it, and then they can't participate with the rest of us. Please don't do that to us. Have them bring their tests, whether it's graded or not, and then in some cases they might get partial credit. I may give an answer in class that you won't recognize, and they may have a correct answer, and it might not sound right to you because you don't know what we covered in class. So it's always beneficial for the student to actually bring their test so that we can go over it in class together. So we'll take care of that. Then once the tests are graded, they will put that in their notebook and then bring that home to you, and you will grade their homework assignment, their study guide, and their on your own, and their lab write-ups. And then I will go over their tests with them and grade them with them, and then they will bring that grade home. In your parent letter, I suggested to you that one very logical way to grade the students would be to go ahead and give a third of the weight to homework assignments. Please, on the homework assignments, only grade for completeness and neatness, because the homework assignment is to benefit the student. It should never hurt the student. So as long as they're doing it and they're doing it neatly and complete, then they should get 100% on that. Their lab write-ups, if they follow the, have their title, have their 4 points, they're doing it neatly, they've actually done what I've asked them to do, and if you have questions as parents, you feel free to email me at professorfrates@gmail.com. I'm happy to help with that. But the point is that you will assign the grades, and so there'd be a third of the weight of the grade for the homework, a third of the weight of the grade for the lab write-ups, which will be throughout the course, and then a third of the weight of the grade given to the averaging of all their test scores throughout the year. In college, math and science are on a 10-point scale. That means 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, etc. And therefore, I suggest that in science they be on a 10-point scale also. The whole reason that I'm teaching these classes actually is because I love science and the Lord's called me to it, and I want to bless your children, and I hope that I can teach them to love God's creation through science also. But I also am trying to help them prepare for college, because a lot of your kids are college bound, and therefore I'm really trying to point them in that direction. And so I think that the grading should line up with what the colleges are doing, and that's how they're doing it. Please email me through the professorfrates@gmail.com. I know some of you are past students, and we have the old email address. That email address is overwhelmed with spam, and therefore I'm losing student and parent correspondence there. Therefore, I started a new email address specifically for students and parents. It's not used for anything else, and therefore I can see when you email me. So please use professorfrates@gmail.com, and I will make sure that I check that as regularly as I can, and then that way I can get back to you faster. Thank you again for trusting me with part of your child's education.